Hello, welcome to HLA Live. HLA Live is our regular broadcast on the HLA YouTube channel as well as all the other social media channels. Each week we talk to interesting people from across the HLA community.
Good evening, everyone. I am really excited to be chairing tonight's meeting.
Hi, I'm Rosie Spooner and I'm hosting HLA Live this Wednesday.
And I'm an HLA scholar and I'm also going to be your host this evening.
To share with us their ideas and their innovations and hopefully bring them to a global audience.
Quite quick, we have ideas, let's do this, let's do that. So
many of the topics come from our community, with scholars and faculty expressing an interest in many of the discussions that we're about to have.
Hello everyone and welcome to the HLA Live session on widening participation in the postgraduate realm.
Homelessness and health.
Addiction and the new normal.
HLA programs are built on 6 pillars. The leader is an innovator and entrepreneur. The leader is a communicator. The leader is a manager. The leader as a negotiator. The leader as a follower. And the leader as a philosopher. If you are interested in becoming a HLA scholar, why not get in contact? Many of the episodes in HLA Live will cover one or more of these important pillars. The HLA team consists of Pedra, Eamon, Tim, Riddy, Alistair, Adil and Trisha, and a range of other HLA scholars and faculty.
So my name is Tash. I am a medical student at King's College London, and I recently had a mad idea over lockdown to start a social media page. So I set up an Instagram page which is called Tash_the Medic, and I've also set up a YouTube account, and today I'm going to be talking about sort of being on social media as a medical student and my experience of that. So a bit about me. So I'm currently intercalating at King's. So I'm doing primary care actually at the moment. So I finished my 3rd year of medicine. So after this year, I'll have 2 years left, and then I'll go on to be a junior doctor. So last year I was diagnosed with depression and generalized anxiety disorder, and I'm now very much recovering, but that was kind of my main motivation for starting up my account. And so obviously it goes without saying I'm a massive mental health advocate, especially advocating sort of for mental health in the medical profession, and I'm an aspiring GP. So this is a bit about why I made Tash the Medic. So like I said, I really wanted to advocate about mental health illnesses in med students, and really speak about how illnesses that affect the general population, of course, can affect medical students and any other healthcare student or healthcare professional. And it sounds very obvious me sat here and saying this, but unfortunately sometimes, or especially in the past, medical students and doctors were seen as these sort of godlike figures who, because they study these diseases, they should be able to prevent or at least treat them themselves. But unfortunately, as we know, that's not true. And the sort of stats are actually shocking about, how many medical students are suffering from mental health illnesses. I believe it's 1 in 3 medical students say they're currently suffering from some kind of mental health illness. So as well, I really wanted to provide a realistic insight into the life of a medical student, as I often hear from family and friends outside of medicine. They often say, oh, you must be so stressed all the time. Surely you don't have time to do anything outside of medicine. And basically they think I don't have a life. And I think this can be really damaging for prospective medical students. If you heard you weren't going to have a life for 6 years, and maybe longer once you're actually a doctor, then I don't think I would want to be a medical student. And I don't think this has to be the case. I definitely think I have a life, or maybe not so much during coronavirus times, but I'd like to think normally I have a life outside of medicine. And, I actually think this is the way to make the best future sort of medical professionals is, advocating for medical students to do other things than just study medicine. And yeah, so I had a very privileged upbringing and I received lots of support with my medicine application, but unfortunately I know that this is not the case for many others. So I really wanted to use my platform to provide advice for aspiring medical students, help writing their dreaded personal statement, help studying for the UCAT, the medicine sort of application test, and how to choose medical schools smartly. Yeah, and just sort of on a wider note, I really wanted to normalize taking antidepressants. So again, I read that 1 in 3 women will take an antidepressant at some point in their life. And when I first read that, I felt very shocked, as I didn't realize it would be that high because people don't talk about it. And, I actually delayed taking antidepressants for so long because of the stigma surrounding it. So I kind of wanted to break all the stigma surrounding them so people get the right help and the right treatment sooner than I did. Yeah, and I really want to, hopefully in the future, I'm hoping to normalize sickness due to mental health. So I often found myself when I was struggling, making up an excuse. My excuse for why I wasn't going to university, for example, was because I've got a sore throat. It was always a physical health complaint, because I've got a cold, because I've got a headache, because I've got a migraine, even though I don't suffer from migraines. Rather than saying, sorry, today I'm struggling with my anxiety, sorry, today I'm feeling low. And as well, I want to advocate for better support for healthcare students. So, I think regardless of mental health illness or not, we definitely all have a mental health. And I think, some of the things that a medical student at the age of 18 going to university can see or hear, such as I know on my psychiatry placement last year, we were speaking to very depressed patients who had suicidal thoughts. And for anybody to hear that for the first time can be very difficult to process and to deal with. So I think better support in general for healthcare students would definitely be a good idea. But yeah, just I wanted to touch on the fact that, so in my psychiatry placement last year, I was asking patients the same questions that I knew I was going to be asked a few hours later in my own GP appointment. So I just really want to normalize medical students suffering from mental health illnesses as well as the wider public. So you might be thinking social media is just one big waste of time. And for a lot of us, it can be a big waste of time as we're just aimlessly scrolling. But I really want to share with you some of the amazing opportunities and things that have come from me being on social media. So in short, these are some of the opportunities I've had through my Instagram, mainly my Instagram platform, which I set up in the end of April this year, and I'm now just under 10,000 followers. And I would never have had any of these opportunities. I wouldn't be speaking to you now, obviously, had I not set up my Instagram account. So first of all, this was very, very exciting to me. I got invited onto a podcast called The Business of Healthcare. And this was very exciting as I'd previously listened to a few of the episodes and they featured guests who were in the medical profession already, not just students, people very far on into their career. So the fact that I had the opportunity to talk about mental health and life as a medical student was very exciting. And I also got to speak on the podcast called Scrubbed In. And again, I just spoke to 2 doctors and I was just discussing very openly my experience of mental health illness. So those were very fun. This was very, very mad. So in August, I received an email from the Times magazine asking me if I would like to feature in the magazine and talking about medical students and doctors on social media. So this was a really great opportunity and allowed me to speak about my motivations for setting up my account, sharing, my story briefly, and hopefully to get that message to a wider audience that medical students and doctors suffer from mental health illnesses too, and advocating for people to ask for help sooner. unfortunately, this was my first experience of sort of the downsides of social media, if you like. And this was when I first encountered the wonderful thing called trolls. But I managed to take something positive from that experience, and I actually learned some really valuable lessons from it. I really learned that you can't please everybody, and I think this is very important as a future doctor. There are going to be some patients that like me, some patients that find me nice to speak to and think I'm very helpful, and I know there'll be some patients that just don't really get on with me, and that's okay. So that's kind of the main message that I took from that experience, and overall the positivity far outweighed any negativity. So I've been invited to speak on various webinars about my life as a medical student and giving tips to aspiring medical students and those just starting. So I spoke on one for Bite Medicine, which was on how to manage exam anxiety. I also spoke for something called At Medicine, where I was speaking about my life as a medical student in London specifically. And then finally, I spoke about how to not just survive medical school, but how to thrive at medical school. So one of the most exciting things I've done is I set up Reach Healthcare Mentoring. And the main reason why I set up Reach was because I was receiving loads and loads of messages of quite, anxious students who are applying for medicine and, feeling very stressed, very worried. And as a mental health advocate, that really upset me. I had all these people, being so stressed and not having enough advice, and obviously through lockdown. So I thought, okay, why don't I set up a mentoring platform where I can match a current medical student with an aspiring medical student, and they can walk them through and help them with the process of applying for medicine. A few challenges were thrown up during this process, as I was very new to anything like this, and I get quite excited by ideas and sort of what's the word, run before I can walk or something, the phrase, I'm not sure if that's right. But yeah, so the issue of safeguarding was thrown up, as obviously quite a few people applying to medical school are under the age of 18, and I was going to be matching them with medical students that I wouldn't necessarily know very well. So this was a bit disheartening, but for 2020, I decided to only open it up for graduate entry medical students. And next year, I do hope to be able to tackle the safeguarding issues working with a school or a larger company so that we can help more aspiring medical students. And so I managed to match over 200 aspiring healthcare students to a current healthcare student. So initially it started with Reach Medical School, and then I co-founded Reach Physicians Associate with a current PA, and then later on I founded Reach Dentistry. So this is a completely free mentoring service where I basically just put the people in contact with, as I say, a current healthcare student, and it's received really, really great feedback. The next thing that I was able to co-found was something called Future Frontline. Now, Future Frontline is an educational platform where we educate others about all the different healthcare roles that make up the NHS. We all know, or we all should know, that it's not just doctors, nurses, midwives. There's a much wider range of healthcare professionals. In fact, there are over 350 different NHS careers, each of which we believe should be understood and celebrated by today and tomorrow's healthcare workers, and ultimately inspire the next generation of the NHS frontline. And at medical school, we'll often get taught about the importance and the need for collaborative practice. So we believe that the only way really that this can work is by understanding the critical role of each member of the multidisciplinary team. Also, we believe that socioeconomic status should never be a barrier to pursuing a career in healthcare. So we believe that we're widening participation by sharing advice for aspiring healthcare students on how to get into university, and helping them through that challenging platform. And we've got lots of challenging platform, challenging process, and we've got lots of exciting plans for the future. I also had another mad idea, there's a common theme here, of setting up a shop to advocate for mental health, and a proportion of the profits I give to the charity that really helped me with my recovery, called The Listening Place. I've also had the privilege of doing something called Instagram Lives, where I have spoken with doctors and we've discussed a range of topics. Recently, I have done a couple of lives with Dr. Daniel Gordon, who is a GP in London. We discussed why medical students and doctors should seek help for their mental health. And we also spoke about eating disorders and discussed how to support a loved one with a suspected eating disorder. And for me, this is a really great opportunity to speak to current doctors and to get their support on the things that I really care about and they care about too. So that kind of leads me on to an amazing thing about social media is networking, and the number of doctors that I have been able to speak to, I've been able to chat to on a more informal way, rather than on placement, where the only things you can really discuss are about diseases and patients. Through social media, I've been able to discuss with doctors what their life is actually like. They've been able to give me guidance and advice for the future. So I've definitely networked with over 50 NHS doctors and at least 10 doctors from across the world. And of course, I've networked with thousands and thousands of current and aspiring medical students. And it's really exciting to be part of an amazing generation of future healthcare workers. So this is the big one that I often get asked, and that is, what does the General Medical Council say? Is this allowed? Are you able to do this? Are you able to be a doctor and a medical student and be on such a public forum? So I thought it was important just to cover some of what the GMC say. So they say that the standards expected of doctors do not change because they're communicating through social media rather than face-to-face. They say that we should treat colleagues fairly and with respect, just the same as in person. They say that we should make sure that your conduct justifies your patient's trust in you and the public's trust in the profession. Of course, we need to maintain patient confidentiality, and any information we publish must be factual, does not exploit patients' vulnerability or lack of medical knowledge. And finally, if you do identify as a doctor, you must include your name. You can't be the secret doctor. But you know, this gives me a great deal of confidence. I know that I'm following all of these things, and if anything, I believe that by doing so, I will be able to provide better care for my patients. So despite all of this, arguably a bit cheesy and a bit cringy, I think the biggest thing that I've achieved is I've made people suffering from mental health illnesses feel less alone and given them hope that recovery is possible and better days are to come. The number of kind, considerate messages I receive every week, sharing with me that, you know, they feel less alone, really makes everything that I'm doing worth it. So what are you waiting for? I think everybody should use some form of creative output, whether that's making a blog, whether that's writing down thoughts in a book, whether that's making a social media page. I really think it's a great way to help others and to develop skills that you don't learn in medical school, such as what I said earlier about the trolls and learning that you can't keep everyone happy, learning some creative skills, and ultimately to be more than a doctor, which I think is really important in 2020. So thank you so much for listening to me ramble away. If you would like to connect with me on my social medias, you will find them there. And again, that is the link to Future Frontline. I'd absolutely love for you to check that out. And I think I forgot to say that all our blog posts are written by current healthcare students, aspiring healthcare students, or current healthcare professionals. So we're always looking for more people to write blogs for us. And finally, there is my shop selling the wonderful tote bags and notebooks, saying I care about mental health. So thank you very much.
Thank you to everyone that made tonight's episode possible. Whenever our scholars are thinking about complex problems facing our health systems, we encourage them to think about how they make significant change in the world of healthcare. We are incredibly lucky to have some incredible scholars in the HLA. They use the HLA as a platform to take their ideas and bring them to fruition. If you are interested in the work of the HLA, why not join us at one of our future HLA events? Why not join one of our programs? Why not even become a HLA scholar? Thank you for joining us. My name is Johan Marlwaner, the Director of the HLA, and it's a good night from all of us.